right, everyone, welcome back to the Flour and Water Test Kitchen. My name is Ryan. Today we are cooking one of my favorite pastas, pasta all amatriciana, which is traditionally done with bucatini or rigatoni, but today we're using the flour and water penne. The amount of texture that's on the outside of this pasta and the ridges, it's just incredible, and it's gonna be the perfect marriage to grab onto the deliciousness that is amatriciana. All right, so what is amatriciana? So it is a combination of guanciale, which is a cured pork cheek, some aged cheese. Today we're gonna be doing a combination of pecorino romano and parmigiano reggiano, some chili flake and black pepper for heat, some marzano tomato, little splash of white wine, and really that's it. It's a super simple dish. It's gonna be ready by the time our pasta is cooked, which is just over 10 minutes. So that's gonna be the first step of the recipe, is getting our penne going. So, like always, we're doing 4 quarts of boiling water, and to that, we're adding a 1/4 cup of salt. All right, so we're gonna add our penne. While the pasta's cooking, let's get started on our pan sauce here. First thing we're gonna do is thinly slice the guanciale, and then we'll just cut it into little squares. We're gonna start with a cold pan and get the guanciale in first with a little splash of olive oil. Reason we're starting in a cold pan is we want to slowly render out that guanciale fat and give it a chance to crisp up. So while the guanciale is rendering, we're gonna move on to a little bit of garlic. Garlic's not necessarily traditional for a classic amatriciana. A lot of recipes do include it, and I think it adds something to the dish. So what I like to do, rather than finely mincing it, we're just gonna smash it, throw that in the pan with the guanciale as it renders, and it's gonna release all that garlic flavor, but I can pull it out before we finish the sauce. We're gonna finish crisping up this guanciale. It's rendered out all of its fat, and it's basically frying in its own fat right now, which is incredibly delicious. The smell of this room is intoxicating. I love this pasta so much. This smell reminds me of being in Rome and eating at little neighborhood restaurants. It's a true testament to the simplicity of the classics. While the guanciale's cooking and hanging out with the garlic, we'll give our pasta a quick stir. Again, we want to make sure that the noodles don't stick, they don't fall to the bottom, and they're cooking evenly. At this point, before I continue, I'm just gonna fish out that garlic real quick. So to that fat, a small amount of chili flake. That's gonna bring some heat to this recipe, but most of the heat's coming from black pepper. The amount of black pepper, it should really perfume the room, but also in the finished dish, this is the one thing besides tomato that's really gonna cut the fat of the guanciale. So when you think you're done with the black pepper, give it a couple more whacks. And that's gonna basically toast instantly in all that fat. So to stop that from cooking, a quick splash of white wine. Careful, it's gonna sputter. Sputter. And we're gonna stir to get all that delicious cured pork guanciale goodness off the bottom of the pan. The acidity of the wine is gonna get accented by some San Marzano tomatoes. And give that a stir. Come on, baby. So tomatoes in, it's come back up to a simmer. I'm gonna hit it with just a little bit of salt. Keep in mind we've got the guanciale, which is a cured pork product in there, and we're gonna be adding some really salty pecorino romano and parmesan, so I don't wanna over-season at this point. I'm gonna turn this off. Our pasta should be getting pretty close here, so we'll check for doneness. Oh yeah, it's got some resistance. It's probably about a minute under our perfectly cooked cook time here, because we're gonna finish in the pan. So we're gonna remove all of that penne with the amazing outside texture. It's just gonna grab onto this amatriciana sauce. Going straight into the pan, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna loosen this sauce up with just a touch of that pasta water. This is gonna do 2 things. It's gonna help season because we heavily salted the water. It's also gonna add a little bit of starch from cooking the pasta in the water that's gonna help tighten up the sauce and really make this amazing tomato sauce grab onto all that texture on the outside of the flour and water penne. And then use Romano. So pecorino Romano is a sheep's milk cheese, also from the same region, Lazio, where amatriciana comes from. It has a pretty high salt content, So I'm gonna use this as my finishing salt for the dish. To pair with that, not super traditional, but we find that it kind of rounds out the flavor of this dish, a little bit of Parmigiano Reggiano as well. It doesn't quite have that high salt that the pecorino does, but it's gonna bring a lot of savoriness to the finished pasta. I'm gonna give that one last stir. Only thing left to do, plate it up and enjoy. This dish, it's super simple, but a little bit of technique and just using some good products and the traditions of Italy. Dinner is on the table in less than 12 minutes.